My name is Scott Ryan. And if I tell you 3 things and they come true, then will you believe me? Too deep of a cut?
No.
I have 3 things to tell you. Number 1, tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, we are doing Always Music in the Air. And if you notice, this is sold out. There are a ton of people here. I would like none of you to be here. Because I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to be singing Sycamore Trees. And I'd like no one to be here. So stay home tomorrow, see your families. It's been days. So that's the first thing tomorrow. But Daniel's going to be performing, and that will be wonderful. So that's 1. 2, all of these Q&As are showing up on the Blue Rose Magazine YouTube. I've not said that one time, and I've meant to every time. And the third one is we have with us the producer and editor of this brilliant film. Welcome, Mary Sweeney. That's why it just feels like it's you and me. There's no one out there. I know that you wanted to explain what this movie is actually about. That was one of the requests that you had, but we're going to table that for now instead of explaining it. And for maybe people who don't know, tell us how this began as a television series, which is a crazy thing, and what your involvement was from there.
Yes, Tony Krantz, who was the agent behind the Mark Frost and David Lynch collaboration on Twin Peaks, had really been pushing David to do another TV series. And so David and Mark decided to revive this title. It was a title-only Mulholland Drive that they had kind of dreamed up when they did the original show. I feel like everybody knows this, but and all it was a title. Anyhow, they wrote that and they got going on making the pilot for a series. And so that was I had just delivered the cut of Straight Story late '98 turned it over to Sound, Locked Picture, and January of '99 we started shooting the pilot. So we shot the pilot, and then we were mixing Straight Story, and we were taking Straight Story to Cannes in May for the in competition, and then we were also doing the upfronts where you show all the networks show all the pilots to the advertisers, and we were in the house literally getting ready, our bags packed and everything to get in the car to go to Cannes, and we got the call that they hated it. And off we went. So time goes by, and we had a whole full season of releasing, and really beautiful with Richard Farnsworth getting a nomination, Oscar nomination, period of time in the release and the awards for the Straight Story, and then this man Pierre Edelman, who this is a deeper dive into things with David, but he's the person who actually connected not only David, but many other really brilliant filmmakers with a French producer coming out of Cannes in '90 when David won Palme d'Or. And he came kind of hanging back around about a year later and said, what happened to that pilot? And it had just been shelved by ABC. And so he just started digging and trying to get Studio Canal to get involved. And so we decided to make a feature film.
During that time, I remember so specifically, I was living in a small apartment, and I read this New Yorker article, I'm pretty sure, about how much trouble and really disrespect ABC put David through. And I remember reading this article thinking, I'm never going to see this film. Can you tell me something about David's mood and your mood, because you had produced it? Because they really were disrespectful to him, and as a struggling artist, I thought if David Lynch can't freaking get a movie made. How am I ever going to get anything made? And I think people talk about successes. Give us a little bit of how you and David took that loss before you knew it was going to be a film.
I mean, David is, you do everything you can when you put your heart and soul into something. And, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me also premiered at Cannes. That was another very rough ride. But this was not like that. It was just, and they were, I think that was Tad Friend who wrote that.
It's an amazing article.
Yeah. He had an agenda too. And David, I never saw David get, he was frustrated, but he was always focused on the project and the work. He, his saying, keep grinding the donut, not the hole. So it was a process that by that point, he'd already been making films with total creative control. So it was frustrating for him to do what were normal kind of network requirements and notes, for example. There's like, that doesn't work for him. But he's very respectful, person, David, to financiers and, but he wants to do it his way. So one of the reasons they hated it is supposed to be 50 minutes, a pilot, and we gave him a 2-hour film. So, he in the end did what he wanted to do, and he loved the project, and he loved everybody he was working with, and, it was a disappointment to think, oh, now I'm not going to be doing this ongoing story. But we got the call and then we got on the plane, we went to Cannes, and that's all really busy. And then we were preparing for the release in the fall, and then we were distributing, and then we're on the reward circuit. So he had made peace with it, just like he wasn't happy about how things went with the release of Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, but he's an artist, and he made the film he wanted to make. That's the most important thing. So that's how he gets to.
What about for you? Because you also edited Lost Highway, and that didn't have a huge success at that point.
Yeah, but it wasn't as bad as
No.
Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah, very few things have been as bad. And then, this place was sold out last night, and everyone loved it. So everyone's been proved wrong who hated Fire Walk with Me. But still, for you, how do you handle that? How, that backlash of criticism?
First of all, we don't read reviews.
Okay.
We know what's happening out there, but we just sort of get back. We had a very contained life up in this compound where we were both really busy, and it's just okay. You can't predict. Nobody predicted that little $3 million film, Blue Velvet, how that was going to hit, or how Twin Peaks TV was going to hit. You can't predict these things. And David always said, if you listen to one good review, you have to listen to all the bad reviews. So it's just part of the business of making films. From the time you have the idea and write the script and get the financing and do the casting and all of it, and then shoot the film and edit the film, then score the film and mix the film. It's a different world from when you have the idea. And you just have to really know that this is what you want the film to be. And that just helps you put one foot in front of the other and look forward and not back.
And then for you as the editor, what was the difference between having this completed pilot and then having this new 30 to 45 minute shoot and making it look seamless? Was that work, does that fall on you or does that fall on someone else?
Well, David wrote new pages to make it, to add to it, to change it to a feature. Obviously, you have to, this isn't actually a completely closed ending, but you have to lose the open ending that's built into all these separate stories that then will go on to other episodes. But that was what, David wrote these new pages, and we did reshoots for just a couple weeks, I think, and I had the pages to follow, and then there were lots of things to be lifted out. So it was just sort of rejiggering the puzzle. So, and our work habit was always, I would follow the pages and cut the scenes to the pages, and I think we made a couple of passes once those were cut of what to take out, scenes that had to come out, you know, that were in the pilot that were too tied to open endings. And then he would just go away, and I'd make all the, you know, I'd sort of insert and make all these things and make it work. And he'd come back, and we'd do a pass, and have a bunch of notes each, and then he'd go away, and I'd do the same thing. That was our pattern.
Is there, like, I think of the scene, and it's funny, his name just went out of my head, but the guy from Jackie Brown, the super, Robert Forster, like, that's something that doesn't go anywhere in the movie. So is there pressure? Are you saying, David, should we cut this? Do we not? I mean, how did you make those decisions? They seem like they would have been impossible at that point.
I mean, that is the beautiful thing about, even when you have one script and you shot it and everything, you're always moving scenes around and taking scenes out. They just, you try them in many different places and they just don't work. And you don't want to lose them, but you don't want to keep anything in the movie that doesn't work. So it's very similar to that process. You know, it's really hard to remember a lot of things. I think we probably talked about, you know, or they just seemed logical because they weren't in the new pages, and there were certain things, you know, there were definitely, it was like also cutting Twin Peaks Firewalk with me. We had so many additional scenes because he was trying to keep all the characters in there. So maybe that we were both informed by that experience.
I was just going to ask that. I was going to ask if having the missing pieces made a difference. Did you have anything to do with the missing pieces once it came time to do the missing pieces? Did you cut those too?
Well, it's tricky. I cut all the scenes, but by the time we started lopping off entire sections of the film, lots of scenes of Twin Peaks Firewalk with me, they were cut, but they were not, you know, they weren't temp dubbed, you know, they weren't fine cut. They were just all lifted and put away, because the first cut of Twin Peaks Firewalk with me was 5.5 hours. So they went away for a long time. So I was already not editing anymore for David when they did the new scenes, when they, you know, for our DVD features, whatever. So someone sort of mixed them, and I'm sure it was all supervised by David.
I snuck in and watched the Club Silencio scene because it's a freaking masterpiece. It is incredible. The first thing that I'd love for you to put an end to, because it's my second least favorite thing to hear from a Lynch fan, and that's, us Ronette Pulaski and Laura Palmer watching Club Silencio. It's not Laura Palmer. And, yeah, they think in the audience, and I see it all the time.
If they were there, I missed it totally.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, it's not Phoebe Augustine and Cheryl Lee. Like, what? I just need to get that off my shoulder. What did you think of watching Club Silencio tonight? It's so emotional. Can you feel the emotion? It's enough time passed. I want to hear what you have. Tell me anything about Club Silencio.
First of all, it was like a deeply, richly, deliciously scene to cut because it was so powerful. Music was so powerful, and the kind of mysterious, like what's going on here, but it's emotionally consistent. And sort of, you get tighter and tighter on the two women and her, and it just like you're wrapped in this. And her singing, I just have this physiological reaction every time I watch it, and I've watched it many, many times. And I just, my whole body's tingling. By the time she gets to that last Yorano that she's belting out, it's just every time. I love watching that scene.
And it's so fascinating because it is a tape. Like, even forget about the movie, it is a tape. We're watching a tape. Yeah, it's such a clever scene. Anything stick out for you tonight? Was there a moment, you've seen it a bunch of times, but I feel like every time you see a movie, something will grab you. Was there something tonight that made you go,
Well, I was just telling Danielle that I don't think I've seen this in 35 millimeter for a long time. And I also show it in the class I teach at USC. And that's from beginning to end, right from the very beginning, all the way through. I was very conscious of the different way that my brain was responding to what was not just the saturation, but just the way the light is different. in film as opposed to digital anything, no matter how good it is. And so I felt like I was watching it tonight in a way that I hadn't, it's been a very long time since I felt that way. The whole through the film was really great.
What's the class? Like, what do you use Mulholland Drive for? Just to shut any kid up that wants to give you sass? When they say, you don't know Professor Sweeney, you go, let's watch what I did. Is that the lesson?
Yeah. No, the class is called Dreams, the Brain, and Storytelling. And it's something that I designed back in 2011 because I couldn't really articulate to my students my creative process. It's so intuitive. And so neuroscience was doing a lot of research about the brain and creativity and narrative. And so I show films, this one and Lost Highway, and I alternate, the only films of ours that I show. But it's like Wild Strawberries and The Writer and In the Mood for Love and Diving Bell and the Butterfly. And these, to me, it's a very subjective lineup. These are all films that you get caught in the dream. You get sucked into the dream. And so I show this film because it is. I mean, it was a dream cutting it, and people do get, as David was talking about in that clip that you made, the circle, and just, it's this interactive thing where there's, and it also, editorially, it's really important to make sure there's breathing room in the movie when there are so many puzzles to solve, and you can sometimes get really disoriented. If you have, particularly like after the sex scene or after the car accident, if you give people quiet time to digest, inevitably the brain will fill in. It's like you walk into a room and there's a large black animal over there. Is it a dog or is it a bear? Your brain in a nanosecond tells you it's a dog. And everybody's brains are doing this all through every movie. We scream together, we cry together, and you cannot resist, your brain cannot resist trying to make sense of something. But that's why you need to give people time to do that, because what happens is they're investing from their emotional landscape, and they're becoming the character. And that's how that dream is sort of, you can really get caught in there. And wake up the next morning still thinking about it. Because you've invested your own, unconsciously, your own story into the story in the movie.
I love that so much. I recently interviewed Laurie Ashler, who did the music editing on Twin Peaks. You were an editor on Twin Peaks as well. And she said that it was a boys' club to be a woman in an editing field back then. I think of her and I think of you as a pioneer. Tell me what it was like to be a woman coming up and editing these films. Like, you've edited some of the greatest films of all times, and you got your start on Twin Peaks. How did you do that, and what was it like?
Well, I actually started editing in New York, and the editing, you're getting the union. It's a very stratified field, very kind of craft, blue collar kind of union and practice, where there's editors, associate editors, assistant editors, and apprentices. So it took me probably I worked as an apprentice, assistant, associate for probably 7 years. And then I just got really lucky, and then I got hired on a really small film because the regular assistant was going off onto a big, studio picture, and I got hired on this $3 million picture, which was Blue Velvet, and the other assistant got hired on Howard the Duck. All due respect to George.
That's incredible. I mean, you've got to just be kicking yourself that you could have done Howard. That's rough. Tell us the Twin Peaks story. That this is a David Lynch event, and yesterday was Twin Peaks Day. We watched Fire Walk with Me, but I'd love to hear something from the series, anything at all. I know you edited one of what I think is considered one of the best episodes at all, the reveal episode. I call it episode 14. If you watch Netflix, you might call it something else. It's episode 14. But tell just anything, because that's an incredible episode.
So one of the things about coming up through the editing discipline, when it's film, it's very difficult to actually get the opportunity as an apprentice, you won't have it, or as an assistant to cut scenes. Give someone, someone gives you cut scenes to cut. And I had this incredible job. I was making this transition. I was an assistant editor on Blue Velvet and Wild at Heart. And then on the second season of Twin Peaks, I was hired as a swing editor. So there were 3 main editors. We were cutting at 35 millimeter, at the speed of television turnaround. And so they would just throw me, each of the 3 of them would throw me scenes, very elementary scenes, and then 2-person dialogue scenes and things like that. And I'd cut them and they'd give me notes, and it was this fantastic tutorial where it was the first time I'd ever cut anything. And so I did that just on that episode, or just for the second season. And then Dwayne Dunham, who had cut the first 2 pilots, was directing now on Twin Peaks. So he was not available to cut that episode that David was directing. 2.7 is what I remember it as.
Or as we call it, episode 14.
And so I felt completely confident to go ahead and cut that. And again, it's scripted, and you get dailies and you follow the script. But then there are certain things you can add. But the real important thing about cutting that scene for him, that episode for him, was that the roadhouse scene, the end of the movie, that's intercut with the violent scene. That was like already just as a kind of like a symbiosis, whatever, between us. That had this kind of like floating, horrifying, deeply emotional quality to it. And then I just did everything he did for the next 15 years, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, I love that you're just like, it's just we're following the script. That episode is crazy. I mean, it is the most violent thing that was, to that point, had been on TV. So it wasn't just like a regular episode where Matlock was talking to the jury. I mean, I understand there was a script, but it's incredible. How did you even get that past the network? Did you have any troubles?
We were really surprised that we got as much by as we did. And so we're just cutting it the way, and we're used to also, subsequent to that on features, always having MPA ratings, make us make little trims and things. But, we just cut it the way he shot it, and we definitely had to do a little back and forth with them, but at the end we were really, really surprised at how much violence they let us keep in. And when I said I loved it, then I was thinking of some of the earlier scenes, like the ball bouncing in the lobby with all the
right. Yeah. I mean, there's so much to it. You are so nonchalant about the incredible art that you have been a part of. Like I think this audience loves you so much. Like, we are so happy you are here. We consume what you gave us over and over again because it is so good. If you're mad at me because I haven't asked her straight story questions, don't be mad. Come Sunday morning. We're going to continue this. We'll talk a little more about Lost Highway there. And this is this whole 10 days is a tribute to David. Give us the final word on what David's work will mean to you when you think it's all lined up, and you see all these people come out. How can we put David's work in a legacy type thing? Easy question.
No, yeah.
Would you rather just tell us what Mulholland Drive is about?
I mean, the response to David passing was so incredibly, so full of love and staggering. I'm not on social media, and I try really to keep my life like in real terms, and so I miss a lot, but it's still hard to miss. So the thing that's interesting that a colleague of mine mentioned was that it seems almost like all of a sudden, everybody loves him. He has, that's an old tradition with him and these films. And it seemed almost like there was a sense of like, oh wait, there's so much more that we didn't really think about, and now there was a kind of a sense of it blossoming in a weird way, not just emotionally, but I teach, as I said, and the 18-year-olds now are like, they're really young, and this is like 2001, and 24 years ago, so they are all they're all totally aware, all very avid fans, and I just think that happens with every generation, and it's just kind of incredible how he made these in a way. And I call it like interactive, that he made them in a way that you do get to come up with your own version of Mulholland Drive and what the blue box is, and that's really something that can just go on.
Well, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. Join us Sunday for a 35mm print of Great Story, and Lost Highway is Sunday too, so we have so much more. Thank you, Mary.